everybody. Stewart and Janet Swerdlow for Expansions.com.
And Janet Swerdlow for Expansions.com.
And this is our news podcast for the middle of November 2015. And of course, by now, all of you have heard about the terrorist attacks in France and Paris. And ISIS has claimed responsibility for these attacks, which are being called the worst violence in France since World War II, which is quite a big statement. And the French President Hollande is calling it an act of war. Now, as a side note to this, there have been arrests in Belgium, in the suburb of Brussels, in connection to these terrorist attacks. And the interesting thing is, according to the news services, that these attackers were known to the intelligence service of Belgium. So my question is, why didn't they stop them? Every time there's a terrorist attack, they say, well, they were known to this agency and that agency. Well, then why didn't you do something about it?
Because agencies aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right, and they targeted 6 sites in Paris, and of course the number of dead as of today, middle of November, is 129, but I have seen numbers as high as 153, and I guess they won't know until they clear all the rubble and bodies out and count everybody up, because people are still considered to be missing. And they said that the scale of this attack inside the European Union, of course, comes right after the taking down of the Russian airliner in Egypt, which I'll talk about that a little bit. But here's another interesting thing. Of course, what does this remind you of? What did they find on the body of one of the attackers? A Syrian passport. That reminds me of 9/11, when the Twin Towers came down, and all the rubble and all the fire, they found a passport from terrorists. Just happened to be there. So here's a question. If you're a suicide attacker, dressed up in your gear, going to kill people, why would you have your passport in your pocket?
If you're serious, you don't want anybody to know who you are.
Exactly. And not only that, on another attacker, according to CNN, they found an Egyptian passport, which connects to the Sinai incident with the Russian airliner. And according to the French President François Hollande, he said, again, it's an act of war, and it was planned from the outside with inside complicity.
I want to also be sure that people are aware of the Paris par ISIS.
Well, exactly.
And so we want to also make note of that, because when we were in Paris, we found Paris more Egyptian than French.
It's the most mysterious, esoteric, symbolic city I've ever been to.
Yes, I agree with you.
It's underneath and above,
yes.
Both. Now, there are 8 terrorists that are dead, and apparently there are some still missing or on the loose. So that's not a good thing.
Well, how would they even know how many terrorists there are?
Exactly.
So
exactly. And it said the prosecutor's office cannot confirm whether all the terrorists have been killed, because they don't know how many there were.
So then how do they know that any are on the loose?
But here's something even better. Let's bring it back in the United States. The Department of Homeland Security are closely monitoring this. I feel comforted. They're closely monitoring the situation. But they said there is no credible or specific threat in the United States. Well, that's what the French said 2 days ago. We're fine. Now, of course, here's another interesting thing. As the terrorists broke into the theater where the band was playing, and into the restaurants, various restaurants around the city, they all shouted, Allah Akbar. This is for Syria. Now, Allah Akbar in Arabic means Allah be praised, but that's not the actual statement, because the real official statement is Allahu Akbar. God, he should be. So, again, maybe these are programmed people who didn't get the linguistics correct, because actually they were heard to be speaking in perfect French.
Now, the other thing is how do they know what they shouted? Because in the middle of all of this, the people who are being terrorized are not going to remember or hear unless it was on security cameras. So if they were on security cameras and they have this phrase incorrect, that's proof right there that there's something fishy.
There is something. And interesting also is that France, of course, declared a state of emergency and reinstated their border checks, which means that there's no more open borders, as the EU and Schengen Agreement has. And the French president has vowed to mercilessly strike back after blaming ISIS. And the question is, what does that mean, strike back? France isn't known for their army.
Well, of course, here in the U.S., it's trending how we are one with France. You know, they have the Statue of Liberty and all this, which we got from France, with whatever their statue is, holding hands. And I mean, everybody is...
Now, here's some interesting from Poland. That's why I like Poland so much, because Poland's Minister for European Affairs said that in view of these attacks, Poland will not go ahead with an EU agreement to accept 7,000 refugees unless they have guarantees of security, and no one's going to guarantee the security. And also they said that we see no political possibility of carrying out the EU decisions. Well, good for you, Poland. I'm glad to hear that. Now, let's go to Germany. Germany's vice chancellor has warned against a crackdown on migrants coming to Europe because of these attacks. He said, his name is Sigmar Gabriel, he said that seeking refuge in Europe shouldn't be made to suffer just because they come from those regions where terror is being exported to us in the world. Hello? That's why you have these terrorist attacks. And remember, I hate to say I told you so, but in September, when I was doing my podcast from Karpacz in Poland, I said these are not refugees, and that before Christmas will be a major attack in Europe. Did I not say that?
You did.
And here we go. And not only that, but today on the news it said that one of the terrorists was smuggled in as a refugee from Syria.
Well, shock.
What a surprise.
The interesting thing is if you look at Syria on the map, and you look at all the Arabic countries around there, none of them are taking in the Syrians. They are all being funneled into Europe. So I find that very interesting as well.
No, and Czech Republic, also a brilliant place. They are refusing. I just got an email today from a friend of mine in Czech Republic who said that the government there said they will not jeopardize the Czech nationality and culture. Good for you, Czech Republic.
Okay, so are you done with that? Because,
No,
okay,
well...
because whenever you're done, I have...
I want to just add a couple more
Okay, go
things,
ahead,
please,
because
because
I want to put a couple things in.
also going on in Europe, and you know that's you have to be very careful what you say about the war and all of these
I want to talk
things.
about Paris, though, before you go into that, unless it's related to
Well,
Paris.
I think it is somewhat related,
Okay,
but
go ahead. Well, one thing I wanted to say is that as soon as this happened, there's now a hashtag called Porte Ouverte in France.
Open door.
Open door to offer shelter to strangers who are left stranded after the attacks. And then it said a few hours later, people across the U.S. returned the favor with a hashtag of their own, which was stranded in the U.S. So
who's stranded in the U.S.?
People who can't get back to Paris because of now the closed borders. So they're saying...
They can get back to other places.
But they're saying that the U.S. people are offering to help Parisians having trouble making their way back home due to airline cancellations or delays. People are offering up beds, couches, and hot meals to French nationals in need. And then those in Paris were offering their homes as shelter to those who needed a safe place to sleep due to the attacks, certain subway lines being disrupted, etc. So the reason I want to bring this up is because when the Syrian refugees first started coming out, they said, remember, Iceland was going to open their home to, however many thousands of them, and then the Pope said that he was going to offer refuge to 2 Syrian families in the Vatican. We never heard anything more about that. So my feeling is that they're trying to get people to open their home to strangers. And it did happen with the Syrians. Now they're trying to do this with the Parisians.
And the other thing, today I spoke to someone in Canada, Canada has a new government, the son of Trudeau. And he is allowing 200,000 refugees into Canada without checks.
Oh my.
Brilliant.
So, is that a done deal, or is that still
a
discussion?
That's what he told me.
So, the point being is they are teaching and imprinting you to open your door to strangers. Now, I think this is leading you to open your door to other things as we move along into this plot. We should have written a book about this plot because they're just carrying out everything that we've been talking about. So anyway, that's what I wanted to interject. So back to you.
Well, I just wanted to give a story about why I have to be so careful in Europe, especially Germany, about what I say. Because an 87-year-old German, and they call her a neo-Nazi grandmother, which she is not, has been sentenced to 10 months in prison because she publicly denied that the Holocaust ever happened. Her name is Ursula Haverbeck. They call her the Nazi grandma. And she says that Auschwitz was not a death camp. And I have been there, and I looked at it, and examined it, and I have said the same thing, but I'm not allowed to say that publicly. She challenged the judge in Hamburg to prove it was a death camp, and he said that he wouldn't debate someone who can't accept facts. He also said, "Neither do I have to prove to you the world is round. It is deplorable that this woman is still so active given her age and uses her energy to spread hair-raising nonsense. She is a lost cause."
Okay, I want to add about
So
Germany.
much for free speech in Germany.
Yeah, I want to add about Germany as well, because they say that the EU migrant crisis feels the biggest rise in Nazism since Adolf Hitler. They're saying that that because of the migrants flooding into Germany, it says they have a terrifying neo-Nazi revival, which is threatening to plunge the country into anarchy. It says police in the besieged nation have been confronted with its worst period of violence and civil unrest since the days of Hitler's Nazis, as anger over Angela Merkel's open-door policy reaches a boiling point. It says the specter of the 1930s Third Reich brown shirts looms large as far-right protesters are openly conducting running battles in the street, targeting refugees as well as journalists and politicians who support their cause in brutal attacks.
Well, that's also wanted to say, because right after these attacks in Paris, almost immediately after, the refugee camps in Calais on the coast of France were set on fire. And the news report said that they were Nazis who set the camps on fire. Now, the thing is, that couldn't have happened so quickly after the attacks, because nobody knew what was going on or who did what. So this was again coordinated to create issues between Christians and Muslims, etc. And as an analysis to all of this, I mentioned, and we know that 2 weeks ago the Russian plane over Egypt was blown up. ISIS took credit for that. Then immediately we have this French attack on the Friday the 13th, which is, of course, a day represented by in 1307 when the Templars were attacked by the church in France and arrested. So there's implications of that. The imams in the Middle East are using the word crusades. And the venue that was attacked where the band was playing, was an American band named Eagles of Death Metal. Now what the heck is that about? I mean, Eagles of Death?
Well, obviously Eagle is the
Eagle
U.S.
is the U.S. Death, we know what happened. Metal, we need to know what that's about. And as I warned you, these terrorists were disguised as refugees. This is just the beginning. I told you between now and Christmas there's going to be a lot of things happening. Look out Germany, look out Italy, look out Britain. I'm telling you.
But now you and I have been talking about this, and I know you've said this before, but I think it's important that you say it again, is that why are they creating this new crusades?
Because they need to create the situation where there is the availability of a staged alien invasion followed by the second coming of Christ, all staged. And they need to create situations that existed 1,000 years ago when there was the one against the other.
So this is like another global ritual, correct?
It is a global ritual.
Yeah. So there you have it.
And speaking of rituals, as an aside note to this, now just about every other day there's a story about someone jumping off or being thrown off a cruise ship.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, every single day. It's getting to be a daily occurrence. So that's, cruise ships symbolically represent oversoul. So throwing people overboard can represent altars that are no longer necessary, that need to be stopped within your programming matrix. And also, just a couple of days ago on the news was a huge story warning Seattle and the Pacific Northwest of 9+ earthquake that can occur at any moment. Yeah. So I know I've been telling you about this for a long time, but now it's on the news. Yeah. And they're saying very seriously it will be very bad.
And I also wanted to interject too about the cruise ship, because they had a video that was posted online about a man who supposedly went overboard on his own. He was hanging from a life raft. And
that was a gay guy that was insulted by the crew for being gay.
Was that what he was claiming? Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, the crew went down to try and talk him back up, and he let go. And of course, they never found him. But the other thing I'm finding increasingly more online is they are showing you people dying. Yeah, whereas before they would tell you, but they didn't show you. And so they're again, imprinting you and getting you used to seeing people dying. You're getting used to seeing a lot of blood and guts all over the place. And you're, again, getting acclimated, we'll say, to that. So now that's in preparation for the New World Religion.
Plus, also, just as a note, these massacres are occurring just 2 days before, which now is happening today, is the G20 meeting in Turkey. And Putin and Obama are meeting with each other privately.
And also there are meetings that were scheduled, or maybe they are scheduled. I have it in my news on. I don't know if I can come across it really quickly or not, but about meetings in Paris over climate change. Oh, here we go. Yeah, upcoming climate talks in Paris. So I don't know when those talks were scheduled because this...
I think they were at the end of the month.
Are they? Okay,
I think so.
But anyway, I'll get to that when I'm on mine. So anything else you want to add? All right. So because we're having so many odd things happen, I thought this was an interesting story that scientists are saying for the first time ever that they caught a momentous glimpse of a parallel universe bumping against our own. Now, we've talked about Montauk and everything else with them, CERN trying to blend the timelines together. And now they're saying that this discovery could provide proof of the multiverse theory, which says that there are many alternate universes. Dr. Ranga Ramchari, a researcher at the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena, said that information gathered by the European Space Agency's Planck Space Telescope. Planck.
It's in German.
Within this glow left over from the moments after the Big Bang, he claims there are a number of spots where the microwave light was far brighter than it should be. So he claims that these signals are caused by interaction between our universe and another one a few 100,000 years after the Big Bang, around 13.8 million years. Now, 13.8, I'm going to remind you about this one. Billion years ago. I'm going to remind you of these numbers when I get to another story. Okay, and then, this also is interesting. Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, they're claiming could be found within 4 weeks.
Well, I thought they found the debris already.
Now, how do they know that? Because they say that listen, this to me, this sounds very obscure, that there is a pilot who produced an ironclad mathematical formula. This man has more than 17 years experience flying the Asian air routes. He developed a detailed mathematical and geometric calculation which indicates where the doomed Boeing 777 came down last March. So, again, this makes no sense. No. They're claiming within 4 weeks, so let's see what happens within 4 weeks.
No. When they give you time like that, it means they plotted it and
exactly.
Planned it already.
Right, and a mathematical formula, I'm sorry. Okay, and then about the issue you brought up in Seattle, this kind of ties in with my story because now they're calling Mount St. Helens a supervolcano.
Really?
Now,
it really isn't.
Well, they're claiming that it is because they're saying they've identified a second magma chamber 25 miles down in the Earth's crust, and this is bigger than the first one.
Wow.
So they're saying this could unleash another devastating lava flow at any time because they believe the second chamber is currently filling the smaller one, which is just 2 to 8 miles below the peak. And then they say that that chamber is actually feeding the chamber that feeds nearby Mount Adams. Now, we've talked about before how all these volcanoes are interconnected.
They're all connected.
But I didn't realize that they weren't publicly saying that. But now they're publicly saying that. So they're saying this could be bigger than ever. And apparently there's a lot of the earthquakes around Mount St. Helens are increasing in frequency. So that might have something to do with that 9 point that they're talking about in Seattle.
Well, the last time it buried your farm, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was there May 18th, 1980. I was in that volcanic eruption, so yeah.
We have cups made out of the ash.
Yeah, we do. And the ashes in the pottery. The glaze. Now, Pope Francis, I always have to talk about him, and I already mentioned we've not heard anything about his Vatican.
No, he doesn't write anymore. He used to email me all the time.
What can we say? But anyway, now he's not saying anything about hosting the 2 Syrian families. That's moot, gone off the news. But they said that he stumbled in church for the second time in 3 days. That he had to be helped up the stairs to the main altar at the Rome Basilica. What else? Oh, then they said that a Vatican dismissed an Italian newspaper report saying the Pope was suffering from a benign brain tumor, in which I didn't know he had lost part of a lung. As a young man, he suffers leg pain due to sciatica, which could have caused that.
I think he had too much,
Whatever.
Yeah.
But then sacramental wine or something.
Yeah, too much blood of Christ.
Yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, and then it said in September he slipped as he was climbing the staircase to board a flight.
Maybe his robe is too long.
It could be. But what was interesting to me is they might be blaming his health, but they said that he expects his papacy to be short.
Because it's going to be New World religion.
Exactly. So here they're slipping all these things in. So I thought that was interesting. Now then there's a man who recently came forward. James Files, 72, has just been released from a high security jail. And listen to this, he's going to a less secure one in Illinois in preparation for his release. And he claims that he shot JFK. Have you heard of this guy?
Yeah, I heard of it.
Oh, you have? Okay, well anyway, he says that there was a collusion between the mafia and the CIA to kill Kennedy. And that he was the one who fired the shot, and that he joined an outfit in Chicago. Because, I was thinking about this. Originally, he was part of a CIA team, and he was a Vietnam veteran. They don't let people like that go.
And they also don't let him talk about it.
Exactly.
Even after.
So apparently, he said he has a now-dead CIA handler, and that the... Handler, and he claims that the CIA men felt betrayed over the Bay of Pigs fiasco, feared Kennedy was going to shut the agency down. And the reason I'm bringing this up again is because this happened November 22nd, so 11/22. So I'm wondering if something's going to be happening around the 22nd of November, because 11 and 22 is interesting numbers to me. So anyway, he claims he was the one that shot Kennedy in the head, and he gave this detailed story to this Dutch interviewer, and supposedly a book's coming out. So let's see. Now, this is interesting because there was a teen boy, 13 years old, who shot and killed a suspected burglar in South Carolina. Now, the minute South Carolina, Charleston, the minute I heard this, I thought, okay, I wonder if the boy's white and the man is black. Well, yep, guess what? The boy was white and the man was 31-year-old Lamar Brown. Now listen to this one. He's 13, he shot 31-year-old. So there we have our mirroring number.
Yeah.
It was at 130, there's a 13.
Oh, look at that.
So I thought that was interesting. And then it reminded me of this pregnant woman who was killed in Indianapolis. Now she had just moved there with her husband to start a new church. A pastor. Again, these are people that can't easily be traced. So this was interesting because she was 28 years old. It happened in the 2800 block. Her son was 1 year old, and a 2 + 8 is a 1. Okay, then this happened at 8:30 a.m. It was near West 38. So those are, okay, and then that takes me back to the number I told you, 13.8 billion years. There's the 1, the 3, and the 8. And it's right here in this story as well. So when we start seeing these kind of mirroring of numbers, there's got to be something tied in. We may not know what they are, but you just have to keep watching to see what happens. Told you about Germany. Okay, then we have a bizarre skull-shaped wormhole which appeared in the sky. And you might have seen those pictures circulating. I did post that on my Facebook. The reason I did that, because it says, listen to this, people were conjecturing what caused this, and they're saying, was it a wormhole opening a portal to another dimension? Was it a sinister weather experiment being carried out by world leaders? Was it the start of an alien invasion? Alien invasion is coming up everywhere, that phrase. Yes. Or a symbol from above before the end of the world. The world is ending as we know it.
It did already.
Okay, now they're claiming that this is known as a fall streak hole. They're taking all these phenomena.
But nobody ever heard of that term either.
And they're acting like this is a normal term. A fall streak hole is actually the result of ice crystals forming so quickly from cooled water that the crystals and surrounding water droplets evaporate and leave a hole in the ground.
Right.
Okay. Then we want to go on to Venus, because there is a sizzling hot Venus-like planet, GJ1132b as in boy, found by astrophysicists, because their goal, they say, is to find a twin Earth. However, they said along the way we found a twin Venus.
Why are they trying to find a twin Earth?
Well, because they're saying that eventually the Earth is going to be inhabitable.
What if that twin Earth has people on it?
Well, maybe that's what they're going for, or maybe it's got dinosaurs on it, reptilians. So, but this is in the news about twin Earth a lot, and now the fact that we found a twin Venus, there's got to be something to that as well. Then the astronomers, you'll like this story, they discover a new distant object in the solar system. They cannot classify the object as yet because they don't know the orbit, and they claim it will take a year of observation to determine if this object travels into Pluto's neighborhood, because Pluto's been back and forth, it's a planet, it's not a planet, it is a planet, blah blah, into a region beyond Neptune known as, guess what, the Kuiper Belt, right? It says if it never gets near Neptune, that would make the object very interesting, as its orbit would be unperturbed by the giant planets and thus allow us to understand the dynamics of the outer solar system, which you've been talking about for a long time. And then we get into, again, global cooling. This is in the news every day, and again, think about the Paris thing coming up at the end of the month. It says global cooling, that scientists are claiming we are in for a decade-long freeze as the sun slows down solar activity by up to 60%. A team of European researchers claim that the Earth is likely to experience a mini ice age from 2030 to 2040. And apparently there was a national astronomy meeting in Wales where a Northumbria University professor said fluctuations and an 11-year cycle, 11, there's that number again, 8 plus 3 is an 11, 11-year cycle of solar activity the sun goes through and would be responsible for a freeze, the like of which we have not experienced since the 1600s. So, and then they're talking about, this was before the Paris issue, but I took this article about millions of us could be under seawater if sea levels keep rising. Now, they're talking about this study that says a 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperatures would put 280 million people underwater. There's that number, 28, 280 million people underwater. Well, if they're raising Atlantis and Lemuria, what's going to happen to the coast? So they're making you look over here for climate change. Is it warming? Is it cooling? We don't know. But in the meantime, you and I have been talking about them trying to get Atlantis and Lemuria to raise up. So that's what's going to put the world, the coastlines underwater, not global climate change. Now, also reported about a beast storm. Now we have a witch storm. And they claim that this is a local term called Witches of November, which I've never heard that. We've been here 15 years.
Gordon Lightfoot song about...
But they're claiming this is a local term. November witch storm brings high winds to the Great Lakes, the plains, the Midwest, on par with past storms, known locally as the Witches of November. I'm sorry, I've lived here for 15 years. No local person I know calls it Witches of November. No. So again, why is that term being put out there?
And it was pretty nasty.
It was. It says virtually on the exact date of the storm that sunk the iron ore freighter Edmund Fitzgerald 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. So again, lots of things happening this month in November. And in Norway, scientists since August have been observing purple slime in their fjords.
Slime in the fjords.
Yes. They say it's similar to mucus or margarine. And now they're claiming it's the result of masses of jellyfish which are disintegrating.
In Norway?
Or Norway, which I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either.
And then the woman who's a scientist saying all this says, quote, "We can't explain why it is like this, but it's not uncommon that jellyfish appear in very dense aggregations like this, especially deep in the fjord." So again, something else is going on.
I never heard of that in Norway.
No. It says it continues to be a mystery for researchers, and of course it's a problem for the fishermen up there. Mm-hmm. Now this was an interesting story. You've heard of David Hasselhoff, the actor. Mm-hmm. Okay, the story headline was David Hasselhoff is dead. Uh-huh. So apparently he's changing his name. And it says, the story says, say goodbye to David Hasselhoff. He's now going to be just David Hoff. And he's like in his 60s. So why would he change his name in his 60s?
Change also?
Well, that was the closing line to this story. They said, is this the first step in a Caitlyn Jenner-esque transformation, perhaps?
Not him.
Well, who would have thought Bruce Jenner, right?
Well, you could knock me over with a feather.
Well, we could say the same thing about Bruce Jenner. So anyway, and the other thing, since we brought Bruce Jenner up, originally, his first name was going to be Belinda. I've told you this before, but I'm going to bring this up to you again. And his first wife's name was Linda, or was Belinda. So Belinda.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that. Now, your name frequency is very important. And a lot of people are changing their names. We do have a name energy scan. We talk about this on the blog, about the archetypes, because each letter is an archetype and has a meaning to it. So you want to be sure to know your own name frequency. Yeah, those are your clothes or your energy field that you wear. You don't go around changing it. There's a reason it's there. So your name frequency is important. And then this article, okay, I have something very interesting to tell you, because there was a new research that says women are never straight, and they're turned on by both naked men and naked women, according to a new research. So it says women are either bisexual or gay, but never straight. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This means that straight people will one day be considered odd. So we started out one way, and we're going back another direction. It says, even if they identify as heterosexual, women were still found to be aroused by attractive females. So I thought that was interesting. And the other thing, if you look in the animal world, and I'm just going to go back to my dairy farming days, that when one cow comes in heat, all the other cows, the animal part of them is sexually aroused and they start trying to ride it. It doesn't mean they're gay or lesbian or straight or whatever.
There's no lesbian cows.
No, because the population would not populate if it was that way. So I'm just telling you, this is taking, you're going to be either, you have to be multisexual at this point. And then I'm just going to tie this into, actually it was going to be my last story, but it ties in, so I'm going to bring this one forward too. That there was a man in China who was dying of cancer. So he didn't want to leave a bereaved widow.
Yeah,
so again, he's 28. There's the 28 number. This is through all my stories. Watch for this 28 in the news.
So maybe November 28th will be something.
Maybe, but that's certainly something going on with that. Anyway, he's 28 years old. He wanted a wedding, so he married a sex doll. And his pictures are going all over the internet. He put on a huge wedding. She's wearing a bridal gown. She's got dancing gowns. He gave her a ring, a tiara, all kinds of things. And I talked about before people having sex with robots versus with people, and that eventually sex with another person is going to be considered primitive. So anyway, I thought that was a really interesting story. Let me go back to where I was. Okay, so anyway, like I said, there's straight people are going to be considered weird. We might be written up in the psychology books, and there's something wrong with us. We're going to have to go through counseling. Now, Nick Jonas, who is of course a rock band star, idol.
He's like 7.
He refuses to deny or confirm sexually experimenting with men. So what we've seen in the news is a lot of women on women kind of things. The next thing is going to be men on men. Because,
it already is.
Well, but it's not as much as it is. Again, it's for you to experiment. You know, the young girls are supposed to experiment. Now that they're going to have young men experimenting, because this is all normal, and again, preparation for New World Religion. And I reported 3 weeks ago about a reptilian water buffalo cross in Thailand. 2 weeks ago, I reported about a strange sea creature off the coast of Greece. These links are all here if you missed those stories. Now this week, the title of this article was, "Is this bizarre corpse found in a garden an alien creature from outer space?"
Oh, I saw that.
Apparently some woman heard a blood-curdling scream and then posted this thing. And there were a lot of conjectures of what it was. It was found in San Jose. So I invite you to take a look at this and make up your own mind what you think. And here we go, start at the bottom. I've got 2 actually tied together about biohackers. These are people, I don't know what the difference is, but the people who are putting, things in people. So, the latest trend, it says, is implanting arc reactors under your skin. Because people wanted to light up their tattoos, so they have these lights that they put under your skin now. And then you can activate these things to make your tattoos light up. Huh. But it says that there is a battery life that they can light up some 100,000 times, and then you have to replace the battery. And so this team who's done it, Grindhouse co-founder Tim Cannon, says that North Star 2.0 will line up with your smartphone. They're going to develop a smartphone app, so when you move your hand, the implant recognizes this, sends the data to your smartphone. So now you can open the car door, for example. It can communicate with your car, and the door opens. So you can, more reasons to do self-implants. Again, nobody is coming for people and forcing them to do anything. And this is what people oftentimes don't get. There's a lot of fear about what are they going to do to us. They don't do anything to you. People are doing it to themselves, okay? Now, chlorophyll eye drops. You know how chlorophyll stains. Apparently, chlorophyll and deep-sea fish and a team of independent biohackers are putting together eye drops that allow humans to see in the dark. Oh. So this is a do-it-yourself science co-op dedicated to the making of science available to the public.
So you put chlorophyll in your eyes?
Called Science for the Masses. Well, it's chlorophyll combined with a deep-sea fish that has some kind of
bioluminescence.
Right. For the dark. So then but it makes people's eyes turn totally green, like chlorophyll.
Even the white part?
That's the point.
Oh.
So they're going to look more reptilian.
Well, how interesting.
Yeah.
I might try that.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, lots of strange things going on in the news. And of course, what I'm working with you on the membership side of the blog this month is creating a safe space, because it doesn't matter where you are, you take yourself with you. So you want to be in a position not to attract such atrocities to yourself. So, and of course I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for everyone who's going through whatever suffering they're going through. But the point being, with hyperspace oversoul work, you can mitigate a lot of that.
A lot of people are writing into me saying they can't even do their work because they're so overloaded mentally, and with ELF they can't concentrate.
Right. And so this is what we have to learn. And what I tell you is they're not going to attack you when that you're feeling wonderful and fine. They're going to attack you after you've had an all-nighter at the castle and you're drunk and it's storming rain at the castle. And that's when they're going to storm your castle. So you have to get strong now, because when you are down, and you are most down, you're going to be kicked. So you need...
Like what you do at Amazing.
Yes, so you have to do your hyperspace oversoul work now. And I'm going to tell you, we do have our class coming up in January.
It's going to be very different.
It's going to be different. We're going to be focusing on a lot of this information so that you can go out in the world wherever you are, and you can be safe, and you can emanate something different through the world and not get pulled into this stuff. So, you know, a lot of times, and I just want to say, people are post on your Facebook page, my Facebook page, sometimes a lot of trash. We generally, you know, we want to know what's going on out there. We tell you about it, but we don't want to focus there. We want to focus on more uplifting things. You know, our point here is to help uplift you, help uplift humanity, but you have to be aware of what's going on so you don't get suckered in, because that's what they do. They lead the trap and people just walk right in. You know, they set it up and you drink the water. So you have to be aware of what's happening out there.
That's
Okay.
true.
Anything else you need to say?
Well, I wanted to say something and I can't remember.
How about all those people who are still traveling to Bali?
That's the one, because I just checked today.
We've been watching it. It's amazing.
My aero Qatar was canceled again.
Yes.
Can you imagine if I was still there?
Well, and that's what I said. You know, they said this is one of the worst volcanic eruptions. It can go on for 18 months. We just barely got you out of there, so thank goodness for Safe Mind Pattern that got you out.
I was rescued.
You were rescued, but there are still people stuck, and families and children, and they are not bringing any more people in. They are only getting people out when they can. And sometimes you were telling me that the flights take off and they have to come back because of the ash cloud.
Or actually, the rescue flights going towards Bali are turned around because they can't get there.
So anyway, it is a mess right now there, and people are saying, "Oh, it was so much fun. You know, if you had to be stuck in Bali."
It's okay for there too. Then it gets really old.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have to realize that being stuck anywhere is not fun. I mean, if it's in your own home, you just don't have that sense of freedom where you can come and go.
It's not nice,
and it's a scary thing. So, and like I said, and we appreciate those of you who sent, you know, lots of prayers and positive energy and good thoughts to get him out of there, because
thank you, everybody.
It could have been
worse.
Much worse. So
you could be doing this alone right now.
Again, I did enough alone, so I'm glad you're back. Anyway, with that said, I think we've said enough.
I think you said enough for sure anyway.
Yeah, well, you said enough too, because I said so. That said, we want to thank you for joining us, Janet Swerdlow.
And Stewart,
whoever you are.
Helens Swerdlow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.